Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strettycast. My name is Dale O'Donnell, your host, and I'm delighted to be joined again this week by Shaun Connolly, where we'll be talking about Manchester United's 3-1 win over Brentford in the Premier League. More positivity, Shaun. How are you keeping?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. Yeah, positivity. First Premier League win of 2022. An extremely enjoyable performance in the second half. It's one of these rare moments in a podcast with us recently where we can actually be happy about what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said at the weekend when I was writing the newsletter that I was feeling quite down about United at the moment because reality hits when you're in the middle of January. You're sitting seventh and your team has yet to go on that winning run at all since the start of the season. And you look back at the performances, and the only one you can kind of hold in high regard is the win over Leeds. That was the first day of the season.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
speaking about this game against Brentford, first half, again, I was feeling there was no reason to feel any optimism at half time, but it was definitely a tale of two halves. And Manchester United came out in the second half and performed really well, scored some great goals. Overall, Shaun, what did you make of it?
Night and day, really. Night and day. First half, lots of ball, nothing happened with it. 45 minutes, we touched the ball 8 times in the opposition's box. Didn't manage one shot on target. And ultimately drove Brentford's manager half demented, judging on his post-match press conference. But second half, fantastic, fast, arrogant, vibrant football. Really chest cock out sort of attitude, the arrogance required to play for Manchester United. Enjoyable football. I mean, I stress this time and time again. This is a hobby. I mean, this is all it is. Following Man United is a glorious hobby, and it's one that you should enjoy. And I certainly enjoyed the second half, especially with the boys who scored and the manner in which they scored. It was fantastic.
Three academy graduates scoring, and you mentioned Thomas Frank, who we can agree had a chip on his shoulder after the match. He wanted to name check Jadon Sancho for not being in the squad, but the reason
It was so
Sancho
unnecessary,
was
wasn't it?
Sancho wasn't in the squad because of a bereavement due to a family member. So it was kind of a low blow. I'm not sure Thomas Frank knew that at the time of speaking, but he also spoke about how little old Brentford devastated Manchester United by completely destroying them in a match that they lost 3-1. Complete and utter gobbledygook. Shaun, I think you'd agree. Was he just trying to deflect what happened on the pitch?
I think it was a culmination of a few different things. All right. I mean, this is it doesn't matter where we are currently. This is the game that Brentford we're looking forward to. You know, welcoming Manchester United to their ground. This is what they were looking forward to. It was, I mean, the hype around that stadium, around that football team for the last week is huge. And I suppose in his head, he thought, oh God, any other night now or any other goalkeeper outside of David de Gea, and we're 2 up at half time and we got a fairy tale story coming on here. Look, ultimately, football is about not only creating opportunities, but more importantly, taking your opportunities. You can feel as begrudged as you want at the end of a football game. God only knows I felt begrudged plenty of times watching Manchester United. But the fact of the matter is you have those chances. And there was a chip on his shoulder. And even more so to the point you were mentioning.
Hats off to him that in the space of about 2 minutes, Thomas Frank became one of the most annoying pricks in the Premier League. Credit to him.
Oh, he certainly.
It only took 2 minutes.
I mean, it was a talent. I didn't realize he had that type of talent. I'd spoken to people that had endured him in the Championship, and it's funny because they come into the Premier League and it's this real kind of. Look, they're a nice team. They're a nice team to play good football. This fella seems like an entertaining character, and then just like that, it's oh yeah, okay, all right, now I see what everyone was talking about. But what was funny. What I'm making the reference, or was it £72 million Jadon Sancho? Someone should really tell him at the end of the game that Ivan Toney cost more than all three of our scorers put together. So these little things they're lost upon you in the heat of the moment, and I say he probably look back and maybe think, right, okay, should have thought a little bit more about that before I started talking. But yeah, I was entertaining.
Welcome to the Premier League.
Welcome to the Premier League.
Talking about the game itself, David de Gea was another mainstay, especially in the post-match reports, the saves he pulled off, keeping Manchester United in the game in the first half. But I wanted to speak about him with a slightly different angle, Shaun. And I know from speaking to you previously that you've raised concerns about De Gea. I'm definitely starting to see him, and I know he performed brilliantly again against Brentford and made some saves that saved us ultimately, like he's done week in, week out this season. But Shaun, his distribution is at fault pretty much every week, and that creates or allows the opposition to create chances. And that's why we're
Yeah,
giving so many of them away.
yeah. Well, look, you know yourself. I wrote about the goalkeeping conundrum at Manchester United, probably going on about a year ago now at this stage. Now, obviously, we're seeing Prime De Gea return this year with the shot stopping. I mean, it's sensational. And if you want to go through the catalogue of history of goalkeepers, he's up there with the very finest, if not the finest shot stopper that I can certainly ever remember.
Yeah, I agree.
But the goalkeeping role has transformed over the years, and there's more characteristics for that particular role. It's look fundamentally. I mean, first and foremost, the goalkeeper's job is to stop the ball going into his net, and De Gea does that probably better than anyone. But it has grown, and I mean, I suppose from what I wrote about to what I feel, I think there's like maybe four defining kind of characteristics to a modern goalkeeper. You have your shot stopping, which he ticks all the boxes on. You have the sweeper keeper sort of scenario whereby you have the ability and the mentality to be able to come out of the box appropriately to act as that extra kind of defender, that sweeper, and being able to assist in defenders. We saw that and we spoke about that in the last podcast when you had that moment against Villa where Lindelof didn't necessarily clear the ball as well as he possibly could. And I said at the time on the last podcast, if that's Dean Henderson in goal, we're not in that position where Ollie Watkins hits the crossbar because Dean Henderson is coming out, getting that ball, clearing it up the field. Instead, De Gea retreats and ultimately we're put in that position. And it's something you see time and time again with him, that he doesn't have that same confidence in that sweeper sort of level. And then you move on to a third sort of scenario. You're talking about your command of your area. And again, I spoke previously, and I still stand by it. Like Dean Henderson has a tremendous command of his area, almost to the point where he's kicking and kneeing and punching his own players, getting out of the way. Whereas, like De Gea is very meek in that. Obviously, we saw recently when Fred, I think, stood in his baby toe, and ultimately we had to bring, two or three of the doctors onto the field for him. And those little things add up. And then when you're talking about the fourth point, you're talking about what you said is the distribution. His distribution is worryingly average at best. And in a defining era of football in this 21st century, so many games are built out from the back, particularly United, who have like repeatedly, I would say season after season now, started cultivating this scenario where we're building out from the goalkeeper constantly. It's goalkeeper to defenders. And we're so poor at it. And for so long, people, I suppose, avoided critiquing De Gea on this because he's such a fantastic shot stopper. But this is a real issue. It is a real issue. And yes, you can look at the statistics and you can look at the amount of highlight reel saves that he makes. But we have to stop avoiding every other part of it. It's simple. The statistics are there to prove pros and cons, and they are certainly there, Dale.
Part of me thinks when you weigh it up, when you put it that way, you ask, well, then why is Ragnick picking De Gea over Henderson? Look, at his performance this season, I think, are a strong enough argument to why he's first choice. But when it comes to the reason that you use that he could be actually proven a problem and making it easy for the opposition with his distribution and his other faults, I also look at the midfield and the defence, and I feel that no matter who we play, as we've seen all season, we're going to be giving away lots of chances. And maybe there's an acceptance that there's going to be a lot of shots on goal. So it's only the smartest option to start the best shot stopper. And when it comes to De Gea, although he has faults, like we agree, in other areas of his game, when it comes to shot stopping, I don't think there's a better goalkeeper, let alone in the league, but he's up there in the best in the world. Without a shadow of a doubt. So that could be the reason as to why. Well, then why is Ragnick starting them? United have a lot of problems. Again, while De Gea could be problematic in some areas, he is not the problem. Maybe a problem, but again, a very small one considering where we'd probably be in the table if it wasn't for him this season and previous years. Shaun, another talking point from the game beforehand, I was hoping Victor Lindelof would be the one to partner Varane, even though United gave away 2 goals late on against Villa. I hoped Ragnick would stick with that pair, and he did, and that meant keeping the skipper on the bench, Harry Maguire. Which again, I'm give credit to Ragnick for this, because I thought that Maguire has been a big problem for Manchester United, especially if they're going to play with a high line. I don't see him being an option at all. I think his future at the club should be questioned, but it won't, because of how much he cost us and his contract. But Shaun, do you see the benefit of Maguire starting alongside Varane, or do you think that Maguire is still in the picture as his captain?
I think there's a few different things with it. When the rumor mill started breaking sort of yesterday morning about the apparent Ranieri 2 board that Maguire, Shaw, and Wan-Bissaka were not suitable players for the football club. You then follow up with a situation where it broke earlier that it was looking that he was going to be starting on the bench because he wasn't yet fit to play. I just think it's ludicrous when I even read that, because if he's fit to play, like, he's on the bench, you know? So
to quickly interrupt, Shaun, last week when he returned to the squad and he was named on the bench, Ragnick publicly said that he was fit, but that he was sticking with his 2 centre-backs that he used in the cup. So now it's changed, that the reason he's not being picked is that he's not fully fit.
Exactly.
I don't buy that.
And it was, no, nor do I. And it was also cited that it was a rib injury. Now, I know from experience, you damage your ribs, you're struggling to walk, let alone going out and running on a football field. So I think there's a lot more to it. I certainly think in the short term, his place in the starting 11 is nowhere near assured. I think the largest saving grace at this moment in time for Maguire at United is the price tag that you made mention to. Because let's say, for big iron's sake, Ranieri has gone to the board and said he's not what we need in moving forward. It's not just as easy to write that money off, because with the transfer fee that he came, you're not getting that money back. You're not. And also, as I spoke about previously, the commercial worth of that particular contract to the owners, they're going to look at it as more so this is aiding in the overall valuation of the football club. So I certainly think there's a lot more to this than was being reported last night, that he's on the bench because he's not yet fit to start. Because even if you look at it, when he came on, I agree with the ideal of bringing a defender on at that particular time, because we saw what happened against Villa in the last 20 minutes when we didn't shore up and we didn't look to consolidate what we had. So I'm not totally against that. But you're bringing who is a seriously seasoned and a veteran defender at both club and international level into a back 3 that is consisting of 2 guys that were already playing very, very well in Lindelof and Varane. You're expecting composure and added composure and stability. And ultimately what occurred last night was he seemed to bring a vulnerability, a little bit of shakiness, but the nerves. And you can't have that. You simply can't. And also, when he came onto the pitch, he wasn't handed the armband. Sure, he wasn't.
No.
So I think there's a lot going on here. I really do. I don't think it's simplistic as he was injured, he wasn't fit. I think there's a lot going on here. And ultimately, if there was...
they can't even stick to the same story for a week, Shaun. Because
I know.
Last week he was fit. It wasn't a fresh injury either, because they would have said that. They would have said it was a fresh injury if it was. So yeah, Harry Maguire's future, is it on the brink? I think I've said this on the blog by a lot of players in the past month when it comes to speculation and X, Y, and Z players being linked with moves elsewhere. I've kind of used the line pretty much in every article, is that Manchester United fans would not lose sleep over this. And we're talking about the skipper, who should be leading us on the pitch, someone that should be starting every week, that we should believe should be starting every week, and he's a million miles away from it. And I think I would add him into the list of players that I would not lose sleep over. I don't see a long-term future for him at centre-back at Manchester United if we are to make the progress that we should be making under the next manager, because we haven't met enough in recent years, quite clearly. Anthony Elanga deserves a mention. Didn't have the greatest first half, but in order to put that behind him, he came out in the second half and scored a wonderful goal to show that he has a head in his shoulders and didn't put his head down at any stage. How impressed are you by him in the first team? Because he's made like an immediate impact, hasn't he?
Oh, he absolutely has. Yeah, for everything that we have, we'll say, for want of a better word, endured. He's a breath of fresh air. He really is. He's, as I said when we spoke last week, he's quite clearly applying himself on the training field, because that's warranting his continued selection in the side. He, yeah, like, as you said, quiet in the first half, but I don't think there was a whole lot really to talk about in the first half as a whole. But like, he was quiet. But make a similar analogy, in a real prime football team, we often speak about these goalkeepers who spend 75 minutes standing still doing nothing and then are forced into one reaction save, and it shows that they're really on point. Very similar to that with Elanga last
Yeah,
night.
true.
And I know you should expect more out of an attacking player, because ultimately they're the people that are causing it. But even when he was without the ball last night, he continued to run, didn't he? He constantly ran. He was constantly an option, constantly drawing defenders away. And that can't be ignored. It's easy to look at the ball and what he's not doing on the ball, but you have to look at what he's doing off the ball, because that's also very important. And it's something that Jesse Lingard was also very, very good at throughout his career at United. And he never got enough of credit for it, because the running off the ball is huge. And Elanga, he's got that youth and vibrancy. He's a breath of fresh air. I think I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I really do.
Brilliant. It's great to have another player coming through, because in recent years, in fairness, we've had no shortage of talented players coming through. Mason Greenwood, Marcus Rashford, now Anthony Elanga, Scott McTominay. It's great to be feeding in, and it's just unfortunate that these young players, especially Marcus Rashford, when he was really breaking through, that he wasn't breaking through into a team that was experiencing success. I think that's crucial what this team is lacking, in a sense of in the argument about mentality. I don't think a lot of these players quite have the know-how, and that's the tricky part of this job for the next manager, is to make this team and give this team a taste of success. That's why it was such a detriment that we didn't win that Europa League. I know it's second-rate competition, whatever, and people might be people make a big deal out of it, but that was crucial for this team, and they can't miss out the next time. The last point before we get on to the question, Shaun, was probably your favorite point, since we did an episode on Marcus Rashford 2 weeks ago. Confidence at the time was at an all-time low. And we said all he needs is a goal or an assist or something to give him that confidence boost. But he came off the bench against Brentford and made the most of his opportunity in front of goal. I was delighted, and it wasn't long before you sent me a text after the goal went in.
Oh God, delighted for him. Absolutely delighted for him. I just needed that goal or assist, and just hopefully build that momentum for him. Do you know what I loved after it as well? When he somewhat apprehended, like he always loves celebrating his goals. But the way that McTominay like physically dragged him and said, "Get over there, enjoy this, celebrate." He was almost throwing him into the fans. Enjoy it, celebrate it, milk it up. Because McTominay, he knows these things, and I love that. It's just special mention for Scotty. I can't go without that. But no, it's fantastic that he got that goal, and I really hope he pushes on from it. Because it's the first time in months that he genuinely there was joy in his face, and that's fantastic. Like,
a big positive we can take is that while his form since he returned from the shoulder operation has been poor, I think it would be fair to say, he hasn't showed any real composure in front of goal. But there was a big difference when he came off the bench against Brentford when he was played in by Fernandes. He showed great composure, slapped the ball home. And, that's exactly what he needed. And it's time for him now to push on. And we get big, massive game this weekend. I can't stress how important the game against West Ham is on Saturday.
6-pointer.
It's even more than that to me, Shaun, because it's leading into an international break. And let's start this podcast by talking about how we haven't had a run of wins. And I'm looking at the league table right now, and I'm looking at the month of February. We need to be winning every game in February, and all the games are winnable. All the games are winnable. Maybe at the end, it kind of gets a bit more difficult before we start playing City and Liverpool and Leicester and the likes. But we have an opportunity to climb up the table, and we beat West Ham at the weekend. Finally, we'll start to move up the table, because it feels like we've sat seventh for quite a few weeks now. Maybe that's what the team needs, is to see a bit of progress from one of the results. And it won't be easy, but as you mentioned, it'll be a 6-pointer.
No, certainly won't be easy. They're playing very well. They're a tough team. They're coached very well, and they're organised. But it's at home. It's at Old Trafford. We got our crowd. We have, I know it's only one game, but we have the momentum of the Brentford result behind us here. I'm hoping that the dressing room is as confident in the potential momentum and the fixture list upcoming and the potential streak that the team can put together. West Ham is never going to be an easy game, never. But Manchester United is not an easy game either. And I'd certainly be Manchester United welcoming West Ham to Old Trafford rather than the other way around, than West Ham travelling to Old Trafford and me, Manchester United. It's not going to be an easy game, but there's huge repercussions either way. And it's a must win. It really is. And it's funny to say that at this early stage, but it is a must win. We have to keep momentum going. Absolutely.
Can I get a quick prediction from you? Or do you do score predictions? Are you any good at them?
Am I good at them? I'm amazing at them though. No.
Put your house on it.
If I was going to back, I'll say 3-1 United.
Okay. 3 points. I'm going to go 2-0 United. I think we're going to get a clean sheet the weekend. Moving on to the questions for the last segment of the podcast this week. I'm going to ask Shaun the first one. Jamie Buckton from the Facebook group. The second half against Brentford showed what we're capable of when we change to a formation that suits us. Do we think Rangnick changes to what works, or does he stay stubborn to the formation he prefers?
No, I certainly don't think he stays stubborn. I mean, it feels like he's only been here for a handful of days. Like, it's been a relatively short period of time that he's been here. And we've already seen his 4-2-2-2. We've seen him retract to a 4-2-3-1. And now he's obviously progressing on to a 4-3-3. The thing I like about Rangnick a lot is how vocal he is about his tactical prowess in pre- and post-match press conferences. He quite clearly is a student of the game. He loves talking tactics, and he's very, very open about how he feels he can get the best out of the side. I don't think he's in any way stubborn to changing up. I think he had a flaw, we'll say, as we previously discussed, against Aston Villa with substitutions and not responding to a tactical change in that particular game. But he's made up for it with how he dealt with the Brentford match. And no, I wouldn't say he's stubborn. I'd say he's quite open to be able to change around. All right. So, Dale, I got a question from Vincent Mellon on Twitter. He's a good follower here. And he's asking, can we defensively play with a 4-3-3 structure? He's concerned about, I suppose, segmentations of poor passing, losing duels in the midfield and rushing our play. Can we control the midfield, and how?
I think we could definitely learn to control games better. And I think we can this season with the way Rangnick wants to play. It's just going to take a bit more time for this team to adjust to that. But whether you can play defensive in a 4-3-3, of course you can. You could also play Fred and McTominay in defensive roles like we've seen under Solskjaer in previous seasons, which drove people demented. So I don't think you're going to see that. I think ultimately when Rangnick is switching to a 4-3-3 now, and judging from what I've seen of United under him, they're not going to play defensive at all, really, unless they're closing out a game. It seems to me he wants to get the ball forward. It doesn't seem to me he's a manager that will settle on a 1-0 lead. I think he likes the goals and attacking football, and he wants his team to entertain. And ultimately, that should be music to the ears of United fans. Whether it works or not, it's a total different thing. That's the most important factor. So people, I guess this is not the honeymoon period because we haven't been given a bounce, but we're still very much intrigued to see over time what Rangnick can do with this team. It's been pretty flat at the start, but I don't think that's really his fault. I think it's been difficult for him to have a sense of authority over this dressing room because there's so many people that don't even know about their futures because the club have let contracts run down. Players are preparing to leave on a free. So, Shaun, I have a question from the Facebook group again from Jerry Kelleher. He said, do you think Bruno is unfairly criticised by his own fans, especially online ones? The social media crowd, he means. Those Twitter trolls. He gets dogs abuse, and I just don't get it when you consider his numbers. I think Jerry raises a valid point here about the expectations on Bruno.
I think he raises a perfectly valid point here. The expectations on him, I suppose, is he a victim of his own success in just how amazing his goal contributions, his figures, his statistics were since joining the club? I mean, we're led to believe that Fernandes is having a poor season right now, yet he's got 18 goals and assists. So goal contributions. I believe it's broken down with 7 goals and 11 assists, and that is without penalties. Okay, so this is a guy who's performing poorly in the eyes of these individuals, yet he's got 18 goal contributions. The man is absolutely pivotal to us in moving forward. He is, I mean, he's so important to the team. And okay, I think from time to time, people can look at stuff like we'll say his pass completion percentage, and they'll look to be very critical of that. And ultimately, I feel like it's just picking and nitpicking. The guy is absolutely and utterly heads and shoulders above so many other contributors in European football. And even at this moment in time, with the figures that he has, he's deemed to be having a poor season, yet he's still one of the top midfielders in the league. He's elite, and he's absolutely dealt with too harshly by so many of these individuals online.
Agreed.
So, Dale, what we're going to do here, we're going to move on. We got another question here from one of our own contributors, Dylan. Dylan is asking about, with McTominay being deployed as a 6, do you feel that could finally benefit Fred as he thrives from playing further forward, enabling him to press high and do what he's good at?
Definitely. I definitely think that could benefit Fred, because as we've seen with Brazil, him played in a further forward position, he plays a lot better, contributes to quite a few goals, and we've seen that again against Brentford with a great pass for Anthony Elanga. But the bigger question, I think, is based down to whether we can find a midfield this season, including McTominay and Fred, who are clearly the preferred options, and make it work. We just haven't seen it consistently. And I know last night, for me, Scott McTominay was man of the match, playing in that role you mentioned. The centre was man of the match for me, especially in the second half. He was terrific, absolutely awesome performance. But the problem for me with Scott McTominay is, and I've always rated him, a quality player. The problem is, can he go and do it now against West Ham? Can he go and do it consistently, game after game, and be a dominant force in Manchester United midfield? And for a long time in the first team, he's been considered inexperienced, considered one of the younger players. But I think McTominay now is shaping into a man, and he needs to add consistency to his game. And that is what will benefit Fred mostly, because it won't benefit Fred if McTominay is running around midfield like a blue arse fly and United are conceding chances the whole time. That'll bring the defence deeper and we won't have any shape. So as we've seen against Brentford in the first half, it just didn't work. But when it does work, it's good to watch. It's good to watch. So I'm still unsure whether they're the answer. I think the fact that Manchester United are looking to sign midfielders is telling that one, if not two of them, future next season in the first team is under question. We've another question in from Facebook from Desi Fahy. He asks, why do you think we're such slow starters in matches? And do you think there's a bigger mentality issue around this group because we're being outfought in pretty much every game?
I think something you touched upon already, Dale, in relation to how the kick of a ball can, I suppose, implement and change so much with a group of players. When you see your open farm and the detriment that caused by losing that, it's amazing that one penalty and winning that could have changed absolutely everything. They're a young group. I know there's a couple of old veterans inside in that team, but they're a young group of players and they're very much marginalized in this sort of scenario whereby they're a part of this failed Manchester United system. I think they're a group of players that require momentum and they require confidence because they're young and they don't have that success of the old Manchester United teams. Ultimately, we're going from game to game not knowing whether Manchester United A or Manchester United B is going to turn up. And yes, we often get outworked and we get outfought. Personally, I feel it's not necessarily, we'll say, maybe a psychological or any sort of an issue like that. I think it's more of a situation whereby there are a group of players that are trying to find themselves, and it's going to require momentum to turn into a trophy. I think a trophy is the biggest thing these group of players need, and that sort of confidence that they can indeed get the results. because I feel at this moment in time, without the victories and without the trophies and without that momentum, they don't have the confidence in themselves to be actually able to say that they're wearing the jersey and they can do it year in, year out and develop these trophies for the football club.
100% agree with that. I go back to that Europa League final a lot on this podcast, and it was such a kick in the teeth, wasn't it? Like, it was really kicking the teeth after a tough enough season, and that opportunity to end it on a high, we didn't. I believe you have another question for me, Shaun.
I got a question here from Scott Van Stratton off of the Facebook page. He's asking thoughts on Dalot's performance at right back.
Massive improvement going forward on Wan-Bissaka. He offers us something, but still not the complete package. I would have to say I'm more impressed by Alex Telles on the opposite flank. I think he's been really good. And it's not like we're in desperate need, I think, of a left back. I think Shaw is okay for now. We might look to address that in the summer, but at right back, I think we definitely need to. Telles has impressed me, but Dalot less so. But like I said, improvement on Wan-Bissaka. I think Wan-Bissaka is having a really bad season. I'm not saying give up on him just yet, because we've seen previously how good he can be defensively, especially in one-on-one situations. And part of me hopes, don't give up on him. And part of me hopes that whoever comes in and the coaches that are there now can actually work on him, because there's fine attributes there that you're just ignoring if you throw him away. And I think he can flourish. I still believe he can flourish. Thanks for that, Shaun. Really enjoyed the conversation, although we've had a lot of run-ins with technical difficulties tonight. This is our 4th attempt at recording, and we've had to stop about 3 times.
4-time lucky.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. But look, before it goes again, I want to say thanks to the listeners who tune in every week, and the new listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe to the Stretty newsletter, which can be found.
We love you all.
We do love you all, especially subscribers. So you can subscribe at stretty.substack.com. You can get our newsletter, which goes out a few mornings every week. It's full of stats before games, takes after games, and we'll be looking to bring some exclusive snippets your way in the near future. Shaun, thanks so much again for joining me, and I'll speak to you again at the weekend.
Yeah, talk to you soon, my friend.